Hello, everybody in Ethical Leadership. It is another wintry March here in New England. Those of us that are living in the Northeast had 3 nor'easters in 10 days. Not a lot of fun. Had some issues with downed trees and things like that. And I hope all of you are okay, that your houses, your living places are safe and sound, and that you are able to get back into the routine of things today. To those of you who are living in Florida, I hope that you are enjoying the Florida weather. Thank you all for a great set of discussions this past week. The Ethical Dilemma, Is It Better to Lose discussion forum, and the Organizations and Ethics forum. A lot of great work, a lot of back and forth. It was some very vigorous discussion. I really appreciate that. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things quickly. In organization and ethics, there were a lot of you who said ethics is ethics, and it shouldn't matter whether the organization is a for-profit, a non-profit, or a governmental organization. It shouldn't matter if it's a large organization or a small organization. Ethics are the same for everybody. Everybody needs to be honest. Everybody needs to have integrity. And I think that's true. On that level, it is true that, as John Maxwell says, ethics is ethics. And everybody, no matter what kind of an organization they're in, needs to adhere to standards of honesty and integrity if the organization is going to function well. However, I do think that there are some specific areas that are peculiar to the different varieties of organizations. I mean, for example, in a for-profit corporation, you're not going to need ethical guidance on how to deal with donations and how to handle volunteers. Those things are generally not going to come up. Granted, you might get some volunteer interns in for-profit organizations, so you might need some ethical guidance on that. But I mean, generally speaking, things like donations, volunteers, you're not going to need that set of ethical guidelines in a for-profit corporation. Likewise, in a non-profit corporation, you're not going to need guidance on how to deal with stockholders. You're probably not going to need guidance on how to deal with international business partners, with how to deal with suppliers of raw materials, because a nonprofit generally doesn't deal with those sorts of things. So, and likewise, a large multinational organization would have ethical guidelines on how to deal with people from different countries and different cultures. A small single proprietorship shop in a small town in Iowa really wouldn't need guidelines on how to deal with international partners and deal with people from from different countries. Just wouldn't need that set of guidelines, more likely than not. So there will be differences based on type of organization and size in the particular kinds of guidance that you would need in a code of ethics. Another thing that I point out, we really didn't get a chance to talk about this very much, but that short piece on writing a code of ethics, that short PDF, has some really good insights in it. And the main thing that I would lift up is the suggestion in that piece to write a code of ethics as a guide for expectations and what's the kind of behavior that's encouraged and expected and required, rather than a whole lot of, as they put it, thou shalt nots. That painting a picture of what it looks like to be an ethical organization is a lot more encouraging and in a lot of ways a lot more helpful for the people that are working or volunteering for your organization, rather than a lot of don't do this. You obviously need some don't do this, but painting the picture in a more positive light is helpful. In the Ethical Dilemma forum, there was a lot of creativity there that I really appreciated. The way that ethical dilemmas are generally constructed is to kind of force you to choosing one path or the other. To choose, it's set up so you either choose to lie and fake the numbers so that the organization could keep its funding, or you tell the truth and the organization loses its funding. And it's kind of an either or. But most of you were unwilling to live with that with that either or. You were unwilling to live with that evil situation. You said, no, we need to be creative. We need to think outside the box. We need to look at other alternatives. We need to look at ways of how we could possibly get those 21 more clients so that we would reach the 200 goal. One of you said, hey, we should just say to people in the organization, who's willing to put in extra time? Who's willing to put in overtime so that we could find these 21 more people so that we could reach our goal and keep our nonprofit sustainable, keep the funding coming from the government agency. Some of you said, hey, we should negotiate with the government. We should see if we can get an extension. We're so close to 200. Could we get an extension? Or could we tell them the story of these 179 people? Tell some of the stories of these 179 people that have benefited from the work of the nonprofit and how valuable that is and what an impact it has on the community. Could we change the dynamic so that it's not just, oh, you didn't hit 200, you're completely cut off? Would there be a way to have that conversation? And a lot of you too said you would have a conversation with the executive director and say, we can't do this. We can't lie. There would be potentially extreme negative consequences if we lied and it was discovered. The reputation of our organization would be destroyed. We would, we could end up going to jail for lying to the government. There's severe consequences to this conversation with the executive director to say, no, it's not a good choice. And then some of you said flat out that if the executive director was going to do that, you'd either quit or you would report you would say, I can't do it, but if you want to go ahead and do it, that's your choice. You're the boss. But then if the executive director went ahead and falsified the records, you would report them. You report that person, which brings up another piece of ethics, which is, do we have an obligation to report people who are acting unethically and illegally? And I think the consensus in the group was, well, yes, if somebody's going to act that way and we know about it, we do have a certain level of obligation to report that and to protect the organization from that unethical or even illegal behavior. So I really appreciated everybody's work this week. I'm looking forward to reading your analyses of Code of Ethics that you've been working on. If there's any way that I can be helpful to you, you have any questions, or if just bouncing some ideas off somebody would be helpful, you know how to get in touch with me, and I'm happy to connect with you.